Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Yo Kids podcast. Before I get started, make sure you check out our website, homeschoolyourkidsexpo.com, and check out our lovely schedule for this year. We have 13 more states to go. Very excited as far as our expo schedule goes. So please check out homeschoolyourkidsexpo.com to see if we are coming to a city near you. And big shout outs to Classical Conversation, one of our beautiful sponsors. We appreciate them. So check them out also. All right. And so today we have with us Patrice. Patrice, introduce yourself.
My real name is Patrice, but I go by Trece always, Trece Davis. Um, my husband James and I have been homeschooling for 32 years. We have 8 kids, and this is our final year of homeschooling our kids because our youngest is graduating in May. So this has been a marathon journey, you could say.
32 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I wrote this book, Living Homeschool, to kind of
Yes.
share our journey. And my daughter-in-law asked me, how did you do it? Because, they were starting to have kids, and she's like, I'm interested, tell me more. So that's why I wrote the book. I never intended to, but she just asked me lots of questions, and I thought, this might be something that could be helpful for other people. So
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
that's a short.
32 years, you got some things to share, love. And you
I
still
hope so.
smiling. You got 8 kids still smiling. Like, this is big. This is big news.
Yeah, because I'm approaching the finish line. That's why.
Yes, right. So how did you get started? What was the like, you know what? We're gonna homeschool.
Right. I had never heard of homeschooling, all of my growing up years. And then we moved to Virginia from Wisconsin, and we started meeting people at our church, actually, a lot of them who were homeschooling. We're like, there's something different about these families. These kids are so close to their parents. And we just saw a totally different family dynamic. And we thought, we want that. We want to try that. So a lot of them kind of took us under their wings and kind of explained some basics to us. And then by the time we were ready to start, because we didn't even have kids yet at that point.
Oh,
But by the time we were ready to start, when our oldest was 5, we had moved to Texas. So, excuse me. So by that point, we didn't have all those support people anymore, but we
mm,
kind of, I would say I really was completely ignorant. I had no idea how to go about it. I knew nothing. I heard these other moms talking about, what do you use for phonics? And I was like, I don't even know what phonics is. All I know is I want to teach my kid how to read. That's how little I knew. I didn't know anything. And so, long story short, I just started studying our language and learning how to teach them the different sounds. And basically, that's how we started. And then my husband was in grad school and was working full time, so we didn't have a lot of extra money. And I said, hon, I think we need to invest in some books for his schooling. And I was looking at all these different curriculums, and he said, why don't you go to the library and see if you can, see if there's anything there you could use, because those are really expensive. And I was like, okay. And in my little naive self, I thought maybe they'd have homeschool curriculum there. Well, I looked on the shelves and I was like, we could study ancient Egypt. I hear a lot of people talk about ancient Egypt, so let's do that. And sure enough, they had a couple of the books I was looking for, but there on the shelf, they had a whole bunch of other ones. And so that's kind of how our journey began, out of complete ignorance and free material at the library. And it really grew from there because I never did really find a curriculum that really connected with me, but I loved the idea of learning together and taking kind of like a unit or a topic, an ancient civilization or a country, and pretending we were living at that time or that place. So let's say Australia. I've always wanted to go to Australia. So we just go to the library, check out a bunch of books on Australia, learn what we can, and then start watching YouTube videos about it and, eating their food. Of course, Australia's food is probably not as different from ours, but let's say we're
Mm.
talking about ancient China. The opportunities to learn about their invention of paper or um, any one of their like poetry, their beautiful literature, their artwork, their incredible Great Wall of China, the Terracotta Army. I mean, we just explored everything and anything that we were interested in. And I think truly that was the key to being able to do it for 32 years because I was growing, I was learning right along with my kids.
Right.
It was feeding me, and that made all the difference. I heard a lot of other moms said, "Oh, I'm just so burned out." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Wow, I don't ever want to get to that point. I want to keep taking in where I feel like it's still fresh and new for me." So
Yes. And
that's
you had eight. So what was those gaps like, as far as the ages go?
right. Ours are about 2.5 to 3 to 4 years apart. So it's about a 20-year difference from the oldest to the
To the
youngest.
youngest.
So it's a big, yeah, big space
Yes.
of time. So yeah, I was either pregnant or nursing for 23 years. So
Mm. Mm.
yeah, I know. It's like I
Yes.
look back and I go, I think God is the only way I got through all that because it
Oh,
was a
indeed.
marathon.
Yes. Okay, so talk about the first four. What was their post homeschool life? Like how's that been?
The first four?
Yeah, the oldest four kids.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Well, yeah, all of them have gone to college. The youngest two are still in college. The youngest one I said is graduating from high school
Hmm.
in May, but he's already in his second year of community college. So he's doing the dual credit route, which all of our last five have done that. So
Okay.
basically, by the time they graduate high school, they've already got almost their associate's degree done at
Nice.
and then they transfer to a 4-year college. But yeah, the first four, our first three all graduated from the University of Maryland because we were living there at the time. And our
Okay.
oldest is a senior data analyst. Don't ask me what that even is, but he works for Amazon and is a brilliant guy. Um, and our second son is a designer for Apple. He lives in San Francisco and loves his life. Our third son is a fire protection engineer down in Houston, and our fourth is our first daughter, and she is a communication specialist out in Maryland.
Oh
Um,
my
yeah,
gosh.
so I could keep going and tell you the rest too if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, our fifth is a son, and he is a computer science geek kind of guy too. That's kind of like my husband is too. So this doesn't is no surprise. My our six is a daughter, and she's a nurse, an ER nurse in Phoenix, the Phoenix area. And then our last two are still in college, but they're both definitely computer science, math kind of people. So yeah, that's them in a nutshell.
Wow, 32 years of homeschool. I'm just so like, because first of all, you don't look
Oh,
however old you're trying to claim to be.
you're so
So that's
cute.
why it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this hadn't have been a bad 32. Like this must have been a okay
It
32.
was a great 32 years. I mean,
Yes.
I look back at it when I wrote my book, what I did was I went through all of my daily journals. And when I say that, people are like, "Oh, you had to journal?" I'm like, "No, I seriously, 5 minutes max." And it was just a 3-ring binder, plain lined school paper. And I just recorded just for the sake of having a record for any inquiring authority that should ever want to see if we were really legit. Because we kind of designed it as we went. I wanted to make sure we had proof, I guess you could say, that we had homeschooled. But also, I was like, this is a time saver because if we're putting in all this time, the first time through, let's say studying ancient Rome, well, the next time we study it, I'll have it all ready. And I thought, I
Right.
want to keep track of what we did so that I don't forget and I can reuse it. And that definitely was a time saver. So, anyway, I used all those notes from all my journals to write my book. So it helped me so much to recall things that we did. I list out different book titles we did. I list out loads and loads of creative activities we did, building an aqueduct and how the kids did that, or building a Viking ship, or building an ancient mummy out of paper mache. We had a lot of fun. We did a lot of that kind of stuff. At the end of every unit that we studied, we always had like a full immersion party where we tasted their food, we listened to their
Mm,
music, we tried to dress like they would have dressed. We danced, we just had a great time, kind of
yes.
reviewing everything and trying to make it like a full sensory experience. Because I think if you involve more, as many senses as you can, smell, taste, touch, sound, as well as sight, it really helps to remember it. And obviously, that's what we want long term, right? For them to grow in their understanding. So, yeah,
Indeed.
yeah,
Indeed.
it was a fabulous, fabulous experience. So, as I wrote my book, I I just felt so blessed that I had been given those 32 years to just spend with my kids, investing in them and also really investing in our family. It was
Yeah.
just a great way to build those relationships. And we're all very close still.
Nice. Even with the different states, because you also homeschooled in different states. Like you
Yeah.
didn't even stick to one. So, because I know Texas is way different than Maryland.
Right. It is. We also lived overseas in Jordan. So we
Oh,
homeschooled there too. That was the coolest thing ever because, nobody there homeschools. So they're like, what is this? And then that exact year we were living there was the Olympics. So we had a giant Olympic, I don't know, like sports day, and invited all of our friends. We've had probably 40, 50 kids participating. And the streets are in Jordan are lined with olive trees. So we were able to cut olive branches to make olive wreaths for all of the kids as like their victory award or something. It was just the coolest thing ever. So
yes.
yeah, we've lived in
Amazing.
different homeschool environments. Yeah, Texas is super friendly to homeschooling. We're thankful for that.
Right. So, where you were part of co-ops, did you have different homeschool organizations? Did you start your own like 32 years?
Right. Yeah. So we've done a lot of athletics, basketball, cross country, um, trying to think of all the ones that different kids have done. Lots of soccer, loads of soccer. Um, we've done different music, orchestra and band things. We've done ballet. Our kids have all taken piano. And then right now, well, I guess this is the first semester he's not. Our youngest has been in a theater troupe, a
Mhm.
homeschool co-op theater troupe that he loved. He did that, I want to say 3 years. So yeah, we've been a part of other groups, absolutely. And I feel like that always is a good thing because you hear from other parents how they're doing it. And, you just gain ideas. I can remember, being a complete newbie in the beginning and hearing this mom talking. I'm like, wow, she's got an 11-year-old. If she can get an 11-year-old, maybe I can get to 11 years old too, because mine was only 5. So
Right.
you look up to these people and you listen to them and they give you little life hacks. And it's like, it's a community. We need each other. And
Indeed.
so, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. So because I'm gonna keep saying 32 because 32 is funny.
It's amazing to me too. I can't believe that really happened. And also 8 kids. I'm like, Right?
Right?
How did I have 8 kids? But slowly over time it happened. Yeah.
Right. Well,
Now
we know how babies are made,
and
Trece.
now we have almost 10 grandkids. Our 10th grandchild is going to be
Really?
born in May. So yeah,
So how old is your oldest?
he is 37
Oh,
and our youngest is
wow.
17. So yeah, they've got
Oh my,
their fourth.
37 and 17. That's crazy.
Right. Oh, you want to hear the craziest moment? We were driving, he was driving to his college orientation, and I had a newborn in a rear facing car seat behind him. And I'm like, this is a little surreal. How many people are going to a college orientation with a newborn? I'm like, is this really happening? But it was. And he wasn't even my last. So
What?
yeah, we
And
kind
that's funny
of going.
because I just did an interview earlier today and he was talking about how because he's been homeschooling for it's Nick Robinson. He has a homeschool helper YouTube channel also.
Yeah.
But he was talking about because he's been doing it for 8 years. His oldest is in ninth grade. And so he was saying, I was calling him a vet, and he was like, well, yeah, but we look up to the ones who had a set of kids and then they got bored and had another set of kids. And so
Right.
they've been homeschooling for 20 plus years and whatnot. You are them. You are who he was talking about.
Aw, that's kind. I
Yeah.
I think it's sometimes an issue if you've been going a long time to kind of get stuck in a
Mm.
routine, a mold, a rut, maybe I should say, and not try new things. And that's why I loved how we ended up doing it was we just went to the library. And of course, over these years, we've been at lots of different libraries.
Of course.
Um, but just seeing what they had and exploring. And now, I mean, because when we started, there was no internet. That was how
And that's
long
what I was
ago
gonna
it
get.
was.
That was coming. Like, okay, 32
Right.
years. So you've seen 3 decades of transitioning as
Yeah,
far as the growth of homeschooling in general.
exactly.
Like, yes, please speak on that.
Yeah. So we didn't know it at the time, but having a physical book in their hands was a really good way to learn. As opposed to, and I'm not saying online learning is not a good thing. It absolutely fits and meets a lot of needs. I would say I would always start, especially with the youngest kids, where they're turning physical pages and using their finger and following along. There's just something tactile that connects with the brain when you've got a physical book. I hope nobody ever gets to the day and age where we say books are old fashioned because it's really important, especially for young kids, to have physical books. Um, Also, there's a difference in reading an article online versus reading a book that's got illustrations on every page. It further enhances that information, even for older kids, 14, 15 years old. Some authors I still prefer using a really good picture book, like Diane Stanley is one of my favorite authors. She's got loads of information, but she also has very intelligent illustrations. So,
Mm.
whatever you can do to enhance their learning and make it human and not so sterile. Um, I don't know. There's a lot to be said about taking time to nurture the love of beauty and yeah, lots of different aspects.
Of course. But like you said, when you first started, it wasn't even the internet.
Right.
Like,
There were no other options, right? But then definitely following up with videos and whatever you can find. Field trips. We did a lot of those. Went to a lot of museums. Went to a lot of things that are kind of just think outside of the box. Like when we were studying ancient Roman aqueducts, we went to a water treatment plant and saw, well, how do we do it today? And just trying to
mm,
connect. Okay, the ancient Egyptian farmers used a shaduf, which was a bucket on a pole, and used a counterbalance weight to water their fields. Well, how do we irrigate crops today? And trying to make that connection for kids as they research and learn and sort of see how our world runs today, too, obviously.
indeed. How much have you grown over those 32 years? Like,
Oh,
think about the level of intelligence you hold now as, and, thinking like, would I have been enthralled in all this stuff,
Yeah,
without the 8 kids, without the homeschooling process?
absolutely. I feel like I am the one who gained the most from homeschooling,
Yes.
to be quite honest. Um, I love to tell people, the front of my book is this picture, and a lot of people are like, "Well, what is that?" It looks like a mother and a child. Well, this was a painting we saw at the Dallas Museum of Art over 30 years ago, and it's a picture of Christ reading the scriptures. It's like a scroll to his mother Mary.
Oh,
And I'm,
wow.
who do you think benefited most from that lesson? Pretty sure it was Mary, right? And
Right.
and to me, that's a picture of homeschooling. Yes, we're trying to do this for our kids, but really it causes me and us as moms or parents to grow as well. And I think it causes me to slow down enough to think about what they're thinking. And it just forms a connection together that you'll always have,
Yeah.
those shared experiences.
Indeed. And how many second generation homeschoolers do you have now?
Well, none yet.
Okay.
They've kind of had different experiences. Like one moved to Singapore and his company paid for the kids to go to Singapore. And Singapore is supposed to be the number one place for education in the world.
Really?
So he's like,
Yes.
yeah, mom, I think we might just do that. I'm like, okay, that's not my job. But they're all phenomenal parents and pour into their kids, and I feel like that's huge. That they have
Indeed.
that connection with them. They're all thinking about it. Actually, as their kids get older, they're like, maybe we need to go that route. So we'll see. We'll see what they decide, and yeah, but yeah,
And
sorry.
with them, with the 8 that you birthed, how
Mhm.
many of them were interested or intrigued by public school? The notion of
Oh,
going to
that's a good
public school.
question. I really only had one who was saying, I think I want to be homeschooled. And at that time, she had a good friend in the neighborhood who was, oh, sorry, did I say homeschooled? I think I want
Yeah.
to be public schooled. I'm so sorry. Sorry. I think I want to be public schooled. And so we talked about it. She had a really good friend in the neighborhood who was public schooled, who was an absolute mess. But anyway, looking back, even a year later, she's like, Mom, I think I would have been a totally different person if you would have
Mm,
put me in school. And I'm like, yeah, that's why we did it. But, at the time we talked about it, and we talked about her reasons, and um, I think it depends on the age of the child as well. If they're 15 or 16 and they really want to, that's different from 6 or 7. Um, and it's really important to listen to them. I've heard of families who have done that, and after week 2, they want to go back home again because they're like,
really?
"Oh, it's not quite like I pictured it to just be a big hangout
Right.
with all my friends all day long." Um, but I think because I went to public school and my husband went to public school, we kind of know for us, it really wasn't the teachers or the material, it was the peers.
Mm,
And, we saw kids can be pretty cruel. Um, so, not to say that that's true of all public school kids by any means, but I think um, having some time at home, and then also definitely having the supplemental social opportunities. You mentioned CC and just all the phenomenal social opportunities there to connect with, learning with other people their own age. There's always great things about that too. So
great.
yeah,
So at the peak of your homeschool, when you had the most kids at home, what
right.
did your day look like?
Yeah. And it was about 5. I figured it
Okay.
out because I still had like a newborn and a
Hmm.
3-year-old, which I wasn't homeschooling, and then one in college. So I think at my max it was 5 kids. Um, yeah, typical day, we were fed and dressed by 9 a.m. We started. We tried really hard to keep that because there's so many people. It's like, okay, I can't just wait around and say, is everybody ready? We tried to keep it like we were keeping a dentist appointment. 9 o'clock. And sometimes it was 9:10, sometimes it was 9:20, but generally speaking, we tried to get our day started by 9. Everybody was fed and dressed by that point, including me. And then we started with the most important study. Then we would move to the most brain intensive study and then the most comprehensive. So for our family, the most important was hearing from God. So we would spend about a half an hour reading the Bible and praying, sometimes singing together. What is this talking about? What does this mean? How can we apply this to our lives? So that's about the first half hour. We did that all together. Then I would give the older kids their math assignments. So that's the most brain intensive, the math. And they would go off and do that. And then I would work with the middle kids and kind of help them step through their assignments. And when everybody was done with that, then we would do together our history. And that kind of included all of their reading, their writing, their composition, penmanship, grammar, spelling, all of that, as well as all the humanities. So let's say on a given day, our 3-year-old, our third grader, our 13-year-old, we were all together learning about, let's say, we'll just say the Great Wall of China. Okay. So we were all doing a study of ancient China that semester. And we were day by day all learning about the same individual topic, but all at very different levels. And so I would give the younger kids, the older kids, here's the topic, go research it, look through these books and see what you can find and write about it. And they did that all independently. The younger ones, I would sit down, of course, and read to them and explain it to them. And then they would dictate or narrate back to me what they had gotten out of it. And either I would write it out and they would trace over it, or they would copy it depending on their age level. And then we would take about an hour and a half break for lunch, getting outside, running around. And I would get about an hour of, alone time, not really alone time, but a little relief of responsibility, let's put it that way, where I could, maybe make some phone calls or just catch up on whatever I needed to do. And that was really helpful for me mentally to have that little island of time in between, because there were so many people. Like, I need to have a parent teacher conference, I need some time alone, right? So then at about 1:30 or so, whenever everybody was already up from naps, they would start their piano practice. And when one was doing piano, the other ones were helping with a household task. Everybody did one thing every day, and it was half an hour to 45 minutes, like sweeping the kitchen floor or taking out the garbage or meal prepping or whatever. I wanted them to all be involved with it because there's only one of me and 8 of them, and there is no way I could keep up with all that mess.
Please say it again. Yeah.
Right? There is no way anyone should have to do all of that work. And they're contributing to the mess. They can definitely learn to appreciate after it, right?
Yes,
So that was a huge skill that I wanted to invest in the kids so that they would, be able to take care of their own home one day. And all of my daughter-in-laws have thanked me profusely.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for teaching my husband to wash dishes and to pick up and to whatever. So I love that. Like, I grew up, I did not know how to work a washing machine. And I got to college and I didn't know how to do my own laundry. I'm like, pretty sure at 10 years old, they're able to learn how to run a washing machine and a dryer and be responsible for their own stuff. So that was key for me. And then survival wise. So then they would have a little break after they did their piano and that one task. They'd had all the rest of the afternoon. Oh, sorry, I forgot. We did a little bit of science at about 1:30, maybe half an hour for the older kids. And then they would do the task and the piano practice. I'm like, yeah, they weren't all awake by 1:30 from their naps. So yeah, it was, you can't do piano until everybody's awake, right? It's going to wake somebody up.
And let's not wake anyone up.
No, the golden rule, never wake a sleeping child, never. So yeah, around 2:30, they'd start piano, whatever. And then they had free time till about 5:36 when we would all try to eat supper together. Not every night, like we would sometimes have different sports activities or church events, but we tried pretty much every night, maybe 5 out of 7, to be together. And my husband would sit down and we'd say, oh, why don't you tell dad what you studied about today, or what you learned today? And so they would go right kind of back into review mode, and they would all be talking about it because they were all studying the same thing. So that was really a cool thing to hear them say, hey, did you hear about this? This is what I learned today. Whoa, I did too. Or, oh, I didn't know that. So it kind of helped reinforce what they had learned. And then we always said, so what did you do today, Dad? And so I wanted them to be learning to listen to him as well, and to each other, and not just be the ones talking. And so after supper, the kids would clear the dishes, load the dishwasher. It's a good idea to do that in pairs, so they have kind of like a buddy, then they can keep talking and have fun with it. We didn't always do that, but that is the ideal. This is my recommendation. Then about 7:30, my husband would start reading aloud a book, a chapter book, just for pleasure, like Chronicle of Narnia series or Swiss Family Robinson, or anything that you just love. And to me, that was a huge opportunity for them to learn good literature, build their vocabulary, just instinctively learning sentence structure just by hearing it. And just also just good daddy kid time,
Right.
And then I would start getting the little ones ready for bed and tuck them in. And then slowly everybody would, morph into bedtime. And then I think probably key is I made sure I was in bed by 11 o'clock, no later than. And some people need it sooner than that, but I was, I would always pay the price if I stayed up late. I love to stay up late. Let me say, I could stay up till 2 a.m. I'm that kind of I love to be in the night owl because everybody's asleep.
Quiet. Yes,
Want
that's
to
the
get so much
quiet.
done, but the little kids still wake up at 7 a.m. every morning. So
Mm.
I found the best way to prepare for school the next day was to have a good brain, and I needed it sleep for that. And also, my other very obvious life hack is take good vitamins every day, because staying healthy is important. Get outside, exercise, move with your kids, and try to eat healthy, low sugar foods. Yeah, so that's my mother example life hack that my daughters are now like, Mom, I can't believe we're turning out just like you. We're taking our vitamins every day. They're like, how many years you've harped on this and said, are you taking your vitamins? And they're like, oh, baby, that's why I'm so tired. But now they're like, we're sold on it. We see the total benefit. So that's kind of rewarding.
Nice. Yes, of course. Do you
Yeah.
find that you all utilize technology more of course, when you first started, I'm sure there was, you know, totally absent of technology, but in the times and understanding, where we're going with technology, how
Yeah.
did you start to incorporate that more?
Yeah. Well, I kind of have a confession to make. So our second son was really into technology, and all there was at that time was like Game Boys. And I
Mm.
was like, this kid doesn't love to read. He doesn't love math. Is he ever going to amount to anything? And like I said, and now he is a designer for Apple. So he
Mm.
found his groove, and he's like,
Yeah.
Mom, I would do this job even if I didn't get paid for it. I love it that much. I'm like, that's cool. That,
Yes.
God wired him that way, no pun intended. He loves electronics and loves everything computer. And so I think because of him,
Okay.
it grew in our family. And our oldest son started going, hey, this is kind of interesting. It really wasn't a passion of his initially. Now he's like a super genius on computers and does all kinds of amazing stuff that I don't even know the names of. And so that really just spread in a good way, in a good influence through our kids. And like I said, then we started using it for researching different stuff, whatever we were studying. I tried to say that as more of a secondary level, just because I knew that they would all love it so much. I'm like, okay, first read a book about it, okay, and then we can watch videos.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's maybe how it was introduced, was through our second son. Yeah, that's probably what I
Gotcha.
would say. Yeah. And my
Nice.
husband, he loved playing Age of Empires with the kids, and they were learning about civilizations through that too. So I'm like, okay. And like I said, he is also definitely a computer geek. So like I can't withhold it from them forever. I
Of
tried as
course
long as I
not.
could, but but yeah, now right, our world revolves around it, right? We wouldn't be having this
Right.
interview without it.
I
So
know, right?
yeah, yep, pretty
Balance.
necessary.
Balance. It's all about the balance. So,
Right.
mom who didn't even know about phonics, how did you teach 8 kids to read?
Well, like I said, I started just by sort of studying sounds in the basic English language. And I literally just lined up, okay, how many words can I make? How many 3-letter words can I make with a letter? Let's start with the letter B. And maybe I'll just be bat, bad, you know, ban, whatever. And I tried to think of every possible word that would fit that so that he would kind of have that really gradual progression. And after doing that with our first, writing little stories using those words, and I was definitely in reinventing the wheel. So by the time our second one came along, I found out about these wonderful readers, and it went through the exact same progression that I had done. And I'm like,
Mm,
okay, I can trust these. So there was a
mhm.
lot of trust factors for me. I don't know if I can trust this. Well, this I could trust because I had just done it. Plus, they had better stories. They had illustrations, and I was like, I like this. So we started using that, and all of our kids went through that same series. I could pull it out. I think I have it right over here. Let me grab it real quick. Sorry to step away from the screen.
No worries.
So this is going to look really old fashioned. It's called It Is Fun to Read, and they've got a way more updated version. But basically, you get a little list of words and then a
Okay.
little story that incorporates those. So there's 4 books in all. And after they graduated from that, they were ready. And I found these again at the public library. I love the Margaret Hillert series. Again, you can still get these books, and it's using those same words, very
Hmm.
simplistic words, but they can tell a whole story on it. Um, and when they read that first book, A Little House or House for Little Red, I cannot tell you the pride and joy on their faces. They're like, Mommy, I read a real book. I read it
Right.
all by myself. So that's kind of how we gradually worked into, reading longer books and books that they were interested in. I always wanted to stay in tune with what is their own personal curiosity about right now. Like our oldest son came up to me one day and he said, Mom, I really want to learn about presidents. I'm like,
Mm.
oh, okay, we can do that. Um, and our second son, I want to learn about penguins. I'm like, okay, all right. He was crazy about penguins. He would walk around with books reciting facts about penguins all day long. All of us were like, okay, enough already. We know everything there is to know about chin strap penguins. Um, and our third son, he was fascinated with planets. So we tried to incorporate those different interests into our studies. Let's say if we were doing an early American study, well, we would kind of guide it through the lives of the different presidents. Or when we were doing the ancient Greek studies, we studied about outer space and planets. And we didn't necessarily do a unit just on penguins, but we did one on Antarctica and learned all about the amazing, unique life there. Which of course included penguins, which I didn't even know before I started that penguins weren't at the North Pole too. I thought they were at both. And I'm like, what? They don't even live at the North Pole, just at the South Pole?
Right.
I didn't know that. And that they live in all sorts of other places in the world that aren't as cold. But I didn't know any of that. So as my kids expressed interests, we tried to pursue those and follow those. And then we were all learning about whatever it was. So, I mean, I couldn't in my limited brain go 8 different directions at one time. So I think that that unifying thing where we were all doing it together helped me with a big
Yeah.
family. I think if you just had 1 or 2 kids, maybe you could always be letting them pursue sort of like a delight directed curriculum. But for me, I was like, I can only do one thing at a time. Okay, please.
Yes.
But I do think that that's a struggle sometimes for different parents if they've got, let's say, 3 or 4 kids and they're all doing different things. It's like, how do you? I personally don't know how I could mentally juggle all of that. So this made it possible for my brain to focus and go deep, because we really went deep. I mean, we learned things about the ancient Mayan gods that I never knew existed. Um,
Right.
so, it gives you time, I think, to really ruminate in it. I don't know, marinate maybe is a better word for it, and just really experience it. And now my husband and I are going and traveling to a lot of these places just for fun. And I'm like, oh, I always wanted to go to ancient Egypt, or, well, I mean, present day Egypt. I always wanted to go to Greece. I always wanted to go to Rome. We just got back from a trip to Hawaii, and we had studied
Yes.
Hawaii 15 years ago. And I'm like, oh, this is so fulfilling to see it. So,
Y'all earned it, love. Y'all
yeah,
earned it.
yeah. So,
Yes,
I mean, it would be better if we could bring our entire family with us,
of
but that
course.
can get expensive too. So, but they're all world travelers now, so they'll be doing it on their own too. So I think
Yes.
really what I wanted to do was just instill a love of learning where they could never have enough. They always wanted to continue to learn more, and I would say that that has happened 100%.
Nice. Yes.
So
Yes.
that brings me a lot of joy.
That is the goal. I feel like that should be like where you start at. I feel like, through public
Right.
school, I feel like the love of learning is lost so early too, like so early because,
Yeah.
the rigorous testing and
Yeah.
labeling and just a lot of things that come with being in that type of school structure. I don't feel like that love of learning is captured, but when you're at home, is presented in a different way, and so the kids really like my girls always want to. Can we look up? Can we look up? Can we see? Can we
Right.
research? Can
Oh,
yes,
that's great.
music to
Love it.
my ears, honey. Music to my
Right.
ears. And I
Exactly.
feel like teaching a child to read is like the hardest task you're going to do. Like, I feel
Mhm.
like that once you get that as far as academics go, everything else is kind of breezy, you
Yeah,
know?
that's a really good word of advice. I think an encouragement to other people listening that if you can, it's like the old saying, if you can teach a child to fish, he'll eat forever. I mean, if you give a child a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach him how to fish, he'll eat forever. And same
Yes.
with reading. If you can teach them how to read, then they can pursue anything they want to learn. And I'd say that's the same for parents who wonder, can I really teach my kids? Well, if you know how to read and if you're able to speak, you probably can teach them, and
Yeah.
especially if you have a desire for that. So, yeah, that's good. That's
Yes.
really good.
No,
If you get over that hurdle, that's an early hurdle, but it's an important one. And kids, I mean, they're not all ready at the same time. I think some parents get really worried. Oh, my child's not reading. My husband had that with our first. He's like, this kid over here, our friend's son was 5, and he was reading like super intelligent stuff, like the distance to the sun is 93 million miles away. And I'm like, oh, wow, he's really amazing. My husband's like, why isn't our son doing that? And I said, well, he's just not ready yet. He's only 5. I said, let's give him another year and just wait for his brain to develop. Because we had heard, that sometimes boys are a little bit later in developing that. And sure enough, I mean, when it connected for him, he just took off. Could not keep enough library books in the house for him. He was just and still is an avid reader. So I was like, his fears were not were understandable, being a first time
Indeed.
homeschool dad, but also not necessary. He didn't need to be afraid. And they've all become strong readers. But like you said, that's the first big hurdle. And
It
giving
is.
them time really to process that, and not, I don't know, making them feel a lot of pressure, I think is important. Because
Yeah.
kids sense that kind of pressure. Um, I think they also sense like when we want to pour too much information into them, like if we think about learning as if we're eating or books like food, I mean, nobody's going to say, I'm going to set 10 hamburgers in front of you and I want you to finish all of them in the next hour or whatever.
Right.
We lay out options and they eat until they're satisfied. And I think listening to our kids and allowing them to digest more in bite-sized pieces than having these unrealistic expectations where they feel overwhelmed because it's just too much curriculum sometimes. um, so allowing them to do it a little more naturally, I think, is a really important thing because, I mean, I don't want to sit there and gag my child forcing food down his throat, right? We don't
Right.
have to do that. It's not good for them. So, yeah,
And there's no rush. Like that's what you have to remember. Like it's no rush. You're on your own time now, love. Like you don't have to worry about all that other stuff.
that's
Like just
great.
take your time. But it's hard. I will say, like, even with me knowing and always reminding parents, don't compare and contrast. Don't compare and contrast. I say it all the time. But then I
Good,
catch
good.
myself comparing and contrasting. And I'm like, okay, stop. Like, don't do that. And my 11-year-old, she will call me on it too. Like, did you just compare? Did
Her.
you appalled? Like, what?
Oh, that's
Don't do that.
great. You know it.
Yeah. But
Absolutely
the
right.
reading hurdle is, and it's still a journey. Like my 8-year-old is still, processing, going through it. But when I
Yes.
tell you, when we first started, when she's like around 4, I would put a book in front of her and she would cry. And I just slowly move it right on back away. Like, don't worry about it. We're not gonna do that today. Let's go
That's
back to
good.
these alphabet people that we created and go back to the sounds. Let's just do sounds. We could do sounds however long you need to do because I did not want the tears.
Yes.
And it's like, you're gonna make me
Right.
cry. Don't cry. I'm gonna cry.
Oh, that's really sensitive.
So
I'm glad that
yeah,
you saw that because, yeah, every child is different. I've
yes.
had some that were, yeah, 6.5, 7, and still really struggling. And I've had some who were 4 years old and chomping at the bit. So
Right.
they're all different. And what was nice about having 8 was I realized it wasn't something I had done wrong or something I had done right. It really wasn't me at all. It was just God made them
Yeah,
each
yeah,
differently with
yeah,
different strengths.
yeah.
And so I just had to try to appreciate that. Like, you know, I'm glad they're not all like,
Right. I know.
yeah,
And that's what parents have to hear too. Like, especially with you having such a vast selection. 8 of them. Because I talk about my two and how different they are as far as even just them starting to talk and the development that I, recognize and observe.
right.
It's funny and we're able to talk about it now. But at first, especially with just having the two, I'm like, should you be doing that? Like your sister was doing this. Like,
Right.
just my little silent observations, but
Sure.
understanding and definitely my time spent in the public school classroom, everybody's different.
Right.
Everybody's different.
That's right.
Everybody is different. And if we allow them to just be them and encourage them more
Yes.
to be them and remind them that they are different and they
Right.
are their own unique being, it
Right.
goes very far.
Absolutely. Build that up in them. You're unique. You're a special, one of a kind creation. And
Yes.
that's beautiful. And you don't
Yes.
have to be just like this brother or this sister. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Be your
Take the
own person,
pressure off of
definitely.
them.
Yes. So
Mm.
you've already touched on it a little bit, but let's talk more about your self-care because like I said, you smiling and you look good.
Oh,
Like,
you're sweet.
talk about the self-care that you made sure to incorporate into your time.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, my life now is a lot freer than it
Of course.
was back when we had 8 at home. Um, a walk outdoors every day was something I needed for my sanity. Now I love to bike. That's my favorite thing to do in the world is going out biking. And in Texas, it's a little bit easier than in Wisconsin where I grew up because
Mm,
it's winter half the year. But yeah, getting outdoors every day is so important just to sort of get out of your own four walls and get a little perspective. Just help clear my mind, playing with my kids, but also just letting them loose outside so that I could think.
mm,
Um, I love to paint, and I try to do that a little more regularly now. When we were all doing homeschool together, I made one day a month a painting day, and we would study a famous artist, and we would just all sit around the table and try to replicate his work or her work.
nice.
And that fed me. Um, is something very I don't want to say medicinal, that's the wrong word, but very healing to me to be able to create and paint in particular. So, those are two things I like to do. I definitely love to work out, and I tried as best as I could to incorporate that. Like as the kids got older, and I had maybe I should say more daughters. We loved putting on Pilates videos and just, hey, there's a big space here. Let's all get out our mats and lay down and start working out together. It was for me, but they all wanted to join in. And it's
Right.
like, it's a good thing to develop a habit of physical strength. Because I wasn't getting any younger. I mean, I was 43 when I had my last one. So I'm
Mm,
61 now. And I feel like I have to stay fit. I want to be
yes,
strong for my grandkids, but I want to be strong for
definitely.
me too and have good energy to be able to do all the things I want to do. My husband and I are planning a trip to climb Machu Picchu this September. So I'm like, we gotta train for this. So
Yes.
yeah, self-care to me is physical, but also spiritual. Spending for me, it's spending time in the Word every day and just staying close to the Lord, and just making sure I get time with other women, other girlfriends. Um, yeah, because I still need that encouragement, and I love to encourage others too. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. Is that the kind of thing you meant, or did you
Yes, no,
have
you hit
a
all of it. Yes, I
okay?
love it. Yes.
Aw,
Oh,
that's
that's
so sweet.
awesome. And yes, because I still want to have more. I'm 40 and I still want to have some more. Like I'm gonna
Here
have a
you go.
second set.
Here you go. Absolutely.
But but yes, if you don't use it, you lose it, they say.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
for
feel
sure.
like that's the trick to not getting old is keep moving. Keep moving.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Yeah, and I would say I'm in better shape now than I was when I was 30
Right.
because I'm I'm working harder at it and I've got a little more time for it now,
Yeah.
I'm not exhausted and waking up twice in the middle of the night nursing a baby.
Mm,
I may have an older body, but it's a stronger body. So I would say I started that about 47. I started working out pretty hard. And that has been the best investment, really.
right. Yes, I love that. I know. Like before we moved to Arizona, I joined a boxing gym and I tell people like
Ooh.
that was my healthiest time. I was like 36 at that time.
Uh-huh.
So that was like the healthiest, like the most that was my first time ever being able to run a mile, like actually
Good
jog.
for
Like,
you.
think about how many fitness tests that I failed because I never made the time. But at 36, I was able to run my mile, first time ever,
I
jog
love
a
it.
complete mile. And it was just so fulfilling. And
Yes.
it's like, yeah, I want to be. Kenny asked me Kenny is my oldest. She asked me to live to 100. And we joke, and I'll be telling her, it's kind of ghetto here. Make it you 80. But in my head, I'm saying, I tell people all the time, I'm gonna live to 100. I'm gonna
I
live to
love
100.
that.
Like, and that's in my mind. That's in my mind. So in knowing that, it's like, okay, what are you gonna do? Live to 100? Like, what are you gonna do?
Right.
I used to joke and talk about Ricky Bobby from Talladega Nights, and he'd be like, modern day technology. live to 100, 115, things of
Mhm.
that nature. But I literally actively invest in me in
Excellent.
regards to making that goal for as close to it or above it that I can get. Um,
Absolutely. You
it
have
is a thing.
to
Yes.
consciously put in that effort for self-care. 100% agree. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So where can we find your book?
Well, it's just on Amazon.
Okay.
It's a paperback, but I've also recorded the whole thing as an audiobook, and you can
Okay.
get it as an ebook as well. Our youngest son helped me with that. He did all the editing, and yeah, he's an amazing computer guy too. Shout out for good old Sam.
Nice. Yes. So
Yeah.
homeschool lifestyle.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Is that the title?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me a question about what was your homeschool lifestyle. Oh, it's called Living Homeschool.
Living homeschool.
Sorry.
Living homeschool. Yeah,
Yeah,
no
and the
worries.
subtitle is Create a Learning Environment Tailored to You and Your Children.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it's basically
Yes.
the fruit of our 32-year journey um, with our 8 kids.
Yes. Creating the home environment, the learning environment for you and your family. Your home, your way. One of my mottos. Your home,
Right.
your way.
Because you know your child better than anyone else. You love your child better than anyone else. You have more invested in your child than anyone else, and you want them to succeed more than anyone else. So if
Yeah.
you need any reason to homeschool, parents are the best teachers because of those reasons.
Yes. That's a gem, but I need three more. Look, three things that you would love for people to take away, parents in particular, to take away from this conversation. If you don't hear anything else, hear
Hmm.
this.
Well, good question. Books are like food for your brain, and so choose wisely.
Mm,
Don't put Nobody puts cotton candy and a diet Coke in front of their kids for breakfast, right? Books are food, so choose wisely. Choose healthy, strong, wholesome books that are going to help them to grow um, into healthy adults. That would be the first thing I would say. Second of all, summarize my life in 3 sentences.
32 years.
32 years. Um, Listen to your child, listen to them, and um, try to be actively incorporating what they tell you into how you school them. Um, as I said, tailor it as best you can to their personal strengths and weaknesses. Maybe your child has a weakness in math. Well, if they are an auditory learning kind of a kid, then do their math by talking to them as opposed to a visual learner. Find their strengths and find their weaknesses and try to cater it in that way. Thirdly, I would say relax and enjoy your kids. Just take time, slow down a little bit, and just enjoy this journey because, and I know if you've heard it 1,000 times, it goes so fast. And I look back and I go, that was a short 32 years. I miss it.
Mm,
I miss it. I loved it. And
girl.
and yet I don't have any regrets really because I poured in 100% every day with them. So just slow down and enjoy them.
I love it. I know it does go so quickly. It's
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
my gosh, you were
Like
just in
slow
my
down.
belly. Like, what in the world? Like, just got
Right.
off my hip. Like, jumping and flipping and everything else. Yes, it does go really quickly. And that's always my thing to first time parents is like just enjoy it. Like
Correct.
enjoy it because it definitely goes quickly.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think there's a lot of people that don't realize that they can enjoy it. I think they think it's just got to be all this negative hard work. And boy, yeah, we totally should be enjoying our kids. They're little us. So we should enjoy them.
No, and they're the best versions of us too. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
look at my 11-year-old, I admire her so much. Her mouth, just look her mouth. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, ooh, sigh. But other times it's like, oh gosh, I wish that I had that courage to say or ask those questions when I
That's
was that
good.
age.
That's good. And to be able to tell her that, to verbalize that for her is going to
Yes,
build her up, make her
yes.
feel like, wow, really? Feel good about
Mhm.
herself, you know?
Right? Yes. She's the
Yeah.
host of the expo. She sometimes I'm her assistant, sometimes I'm her coworker. Like it all depends on how she wants to introduce me. But she's like, "Mhm, this, yeah, I'm the host and she helps."
Amazing. You're passing on entrepreneurship. I love
Yeah,
it.
yes, yes. Very vocal young lady. And I want to feed it as much as I can.
Mm,
Confidence is the goal. It is. Because
that's
once
really
you
beautiful.
build that, it's like, you got it. You can conquer the world, love.
That's right. That's right. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, so thank you, Trece. Thank you for your
Mhm.
time. Thank you for taking the time to write what you wrote.
Mm.
It's always amazed at alignment and trusting the process because, like you said, you didn't even know those journals were going to turn into what it turned into.
Right.
But it was
No
for a
idea.
reason, right? Yes. So always, family, trust the process. Understand this is not a journey you have to do alone. The answers are out there. Seek and you shall find. A 32-year-old vet, like, that's still smiling and looking good. Like, I promise I want to get some advice. Like, I'm going to take all this back in again when I listen back to it.
Mm,
Because it is a true inspiration. You really are a true inspiration.
mm.
Just knowing that, hey, you could do this. You could do this. Hey,
If
I'm a walking
I can
test.
do it, anybody can. Absolutely.
Right? You heard how she started, y'all. She didn't know what phonics was. She said, I didn't know what are you talking about? So yes, no, start with what you have and get to where you're trying to go. But understand that you can do it. You can do it.
Mm.
So always and forever, homeschool your kids.